إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء. واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أيها الإخوة في الإسلام الدين, my dearly respected brothers in the deen of Islam, those of us who were allowed to come today are truly blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those of us, my brothers and sisters, who are allowed to even prostrate their backs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you beyond all measures. Today, inshallah ta'ala, one of the things I want to remind us of and mention is the importance of taqwa. As we all know that the month of Ramadan is fastly approaching. It is upon us and it is coming, and there is nothing that can stop it. The only thing that will prevent you and I from seeing the month of Ramadan is if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes your life. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not take your life, then again, this is a ni'mah, this is a favor, this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to truly cherish for the rest of your life. Because my dearly respected brothers, the essence of the month that is upon us, it is to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is to acquire taqwa. It is to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above all things and all people. It is to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by knowing Him and understanding what it is that He requires of you on a daily basis, not just during the month of Ramadan. Some of us, my brothers, will look around to our left and to our right, and we will notice that those who were present with us last year may not be here this year. Maybe they've returned back to Allah, or for whatever reason, maybe they may not be able to fast this month of Ramadan. Maybe some sickness has overcome them. But everything that we have been given as Muslims to bring ourselves closer to Allah, it is something to give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every single day and every single night. Day and night. If we look at Ramadan, my brothers and sisters, if we look at Ramadan, there's benefits and examples that we can take out of the month of Ramadan that's coming. Every single morning, we are ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to take a pre-dawn meal before we fast, but to leave off food and drink at sunrise or at the onset of Fajr. When Fajr comes in, there's no more drinking, there's no more eating, there's no more cutting up. Everything comes to a halt. Why? Because it's an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to have a successful fast, you have to obey the order. Likewise, when you break the fast, what are we recommended to do by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Haste in breaking the fast. This is an example. Haste in breaking the fast, the example that comes along with it is that we should haste in following the commandments of Allah. We should never procrastinate when it comes to doing what Allah has ordered us to do. At the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. And throughout the night, we should also follow that up, my brothers and sisters, with those things that is recommended. As you notice, during the month of Ramadan, what will we be doing? We will be standing at night. Many of us, we will be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hearing the Quran being recited every single night. This is a training. This is something to cultivate the soul. This is something by which that if we take from it the benefit, this is something that we can incorporate in our daily lives from that day until the day we die. Because Ramadan is not just a month that comes that we should enjoy in abstaining from things that is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and outside of Ramadan, we return back to those things. No. Ramadan, my brothers and sisters, is a month to train us, to get us, or to catapult us into the rest of the life that we have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in it are signs for us to take heed of, and benefits to draw near and draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because taqwa is that thing, the essence of Ramadan. And taqwa is something that if you fast respectfully, and not only respectfully, but if you fast successfully, then this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you. He will provide you with a tool that will bring you closer to Him. The question is, my brothers and sisters, are we fasting just because we feel like if we don't fast, that, or in other words, how can I say, just a precautionary fast? I know if I don't fast, then, something's going to happen. Of course something's going to happen. But do you have the desire to fast? How do you feel right now? How does your bodies feel? How does your mind feel? How does your soul feel? Right now, Ramadan is about 11 days away, give or take a few, depending on if you see the moon or not. And that's another whole thing. You see, where I come from, we sight the moon. Why? Because this is something that was prescribed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to sight the moon. This is not a knock on those who, they determine their Ramadan on the basis of calculations. I'm just saying that where we come from, where I come from, Norman, Oklahoma, we sight the moon. Why? Because that is what? That is following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And how will you be successful unless and until you follow his example? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yaqul a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyama kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. We hear this at the beginning of Ramadan. We hear this throughout the weeks and days outside of Ramadan. We hear this over and over and over. But it's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in here. He says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. The essence that you may what? That you may acquire taqwa. Because it is something that is needed. It is the tool that will bring you closer to Allah. And how better, my brothers, than to bring yourselves closer to Allah than getting more acquainted with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how can you get acquainted with Allah? Except by knowing who He is and what He says about Himself in His illustrious book, the Quran. The revelation that He sent down to all mankind. What better way to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than to know what He says about Himself? My question is this. If a question was posed to you, Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? What would be your answer? What would be your answer? My brothers and sisters, this is the first question that we will be asked when we enter the grave. Man Rabbuk. And it's not enough, my brothers and sisters, don't get it twisted. It's not enough just to say, Rabbi Allah, oh, my Lord is Allah. That's easy. That's very easy. Rather, بِأَيِّ شَيْءٍ تَعْرِفُ رَبَّكَ. By which things do you know Allah? How do you know Him? How do you know Him? Are you spending your time getting to know Allah? This is an opportunity that we have that doesn't come just haphazardly. I'm speaking about this because my brothers this month, the call is made. Just like the brother stood up to announce this day by making the call. The call has been out. The call has been made. This is the month of the Muadhins. The call is being made because there is a gathering upon you and me. And when we see that moon, when we first see the sign of Ramadan, this will be our iqamah. This will be the time when we stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what is due to Him. But again, how can you give what is due to Allah if you don't know what He wants? Or how can we as people, as Muslims, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we don't know Him? Because it's not enough just to say, I know His name, Allah. My brothers and sisters, when I was growing up, coming into Islam, I can remember when I never uttered the name Allah out of my mouth. I never heard the name Allah until I entered Islam. Never. I could go even further. The benefit of Islam gave me the true essence of what it means to be a brother to one another, because before Islam, I had homeboys, I had partners, I had compadres, I had, friends. But it wasn't until I accepted Islam, until I understood and focused on the word companion. Companion. You see, it's different from just saying that's my friend, or when you say that's my companion. It's different. It has a different ring to it. It has a different connotation to it. Imagine that. Put yourself in my shoes coming out of Jahiliyyah. By the grace and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being called to this great way of life. After not knowing who Allah was. After not knowing who Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was. Not knowing anything about what Islam is about. And Allah brings you into this fold to do what? To bring you closer to Him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Iqra, read. But don't just read, Iqra rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord who created you. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introducing Himself to people like me. Just like which was the first revelation that was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, read in the name of your who? Of your Rabb. How many of you know that in America, there was once a time when people of color, like myself, it was illegal for them to read. If you got caught reading, you were killed, hung, beaten, maimed, murdered. Women and children were harmed. Right here in America. But Islam is the most liberating tool. Because man told us we couldn't read. But in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Iqra. Read in my name. Step across the threshold and bear witness and say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Bear witness. Testify. Take this testification and live with it. And it will liberate you. The kalima tayyiba, or the kalima la ilaha illallah, it is the most liberating statement. And I'm not about politics, but it is the most strongest political statement as well. Because why? Because it is saying that I will only uphold, or I am only concerned about worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over anything else. And obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over anything else. So if someone was to come to me, or people like me, and say, go do this and go do that, commit haram and fusuq, then guess what? We would say la. Why? Because la ilaha illallah doesn't constitute that. Our constitution is the Quran. That's it. There's no other constitution for people like me. Neither should it be for you, because we're all brothers, right? We're companions. There is no other constitution for you and me except the Quran. Believe that. Because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the revelation for. So that it would draw you closer to who He is and understand what He's about. So that you would know that He's Rabbil Alameen. Not only is He Rabbil Alameen, what else does He say? He says He's Maliki Yawmiddin. He's the owner of the day that everyone will be called to account. And this month that is coming up, my brothers, we are going to be reminded of this from the first until the end of Ramadan. We will be reminded of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought us to. We will be reminded of our duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all throughout this month. We will be reminded that there is no one worthy of worship but Allah. That there's no one more precious than Allah. There's none to be taken as any bodies of worship or anything other than Allah. There's nothing more important than knowing who Allah is, or drawing closer to Him, or being in His company, being in His presence. How do you feel when you stand before Allah? Do you feel like you're in His presence? Do you feel close to Him when you prostrate your head on the floor? Where is your heart at when it comes to prostration, my brothers? What is the beat of your heart and your soul when it comes to putting yourself in front of Allah? How do you feel? The companions, radiallahu anhum, they used to tremble when they would stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their hearts would flutter, and some of them, because of the fear that they had of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their hearts would burst. Why? Because of the fear that they had standing there in front of the one who they knew with certainty that everything he said in the Quran is the truth. And if they themselves, like us, are not about this call, La ilaha illallah, and if we are not truthful to it, if we are not sincere to it, if we do not love it, if we don't submit to it and surrender to it, my brothers and sisters, then it's just a claim. Just like fasting, why would we fast if we don't intend to get closer to Allah? Allah's in no need of you giving up your food and your drink if your ultimate objective is not to get close to Him. The ultimate objective is to get closer to Allah. My brothers and sisters, it is so important today, in today's day and age, that we start nurturing our young ones on knowing who Allah is. Ask your young ones, tell me who Allah is, and see what they say. How many names of Allah will they know? How many attributes or actions of Allah will they know? Because if they don't know many, then we're not doing our job. Including myself. I have sons too. But when we ask them, Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? Who is Allah? They should be able to tell us who He is. Why? Because we should be teaching it to them. In order to draw closer to Him. What better way to get closer to Allah than to know Him more personally? My brothers and sisters, when you have a child, whether it be a young boy or a little girl, the first words that you should teach them is the name of Allah, not mama and dada. This is not the way. Teach them the name of Allah first and let that be the first thing on their tongue. When our children, when they come out of the womb of the mothers, what is the first thing that they hear? La ilaha illallah, right? They hear it. They hear the call. And the first thing that they taste, is the saliva of a chewed date on their tongue. Something that is halal, not haram. Don't ever doubt who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and don't ever make him second to who you are. Put Allah first, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate you, and your family, and your community, and the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But when you put Allah second, don't expect anything from Allah. Don't cry to Allah out of convenience, expecting something to change if we are not willing to change our own selves first. My brothers and sisters, let this month that is upon us be a wake-up call for every one of us to draw closer to Allah. Get to know who Allah is. Wallahi, there's nothing better than that. Wallahi, there is nothing better than knowing who Allah is. Food, water, warmth, shelter, none of these things. The companionship that you have between your brothers or your sisters or your spouses, none of this is more intimate than having a relationship with Allah. Because if you don't have a relationship with Allah, none of that means anything anyway. And what better way to come closer to Allah than to abstain from what Allah has commanded you to abstain from during this illustrious month that is ahead of us. This illustrious month, my brothers, that is ahead of us. Can you feel it? It's coming. It's coming. How do you receive Ramadan, my brothers? It's coming. Do you want it? Do you need it? Do you feel inwardly that you need it? What do you want to do in changing who you are during this month? How close do you really want to be to Allah? My brothers and sisters, we got to dig deep. Let's not let this month that is upon us be just another month. Let it be a month of transitioning. From what? From bad habits to good habits. From bad thoughts to good thoughts. From hate to love. From not caring to caring. I'm asking you, I'm not just asking you just to be asking you this question, my brothers and sisters. Do you feel it coming? Do you feel it? And do you want it? My brothers, this is the month of Ramadan, and it's coming. Wallahi, it's coming. It's coming. Inshallah, there's a few things I want to mention about the month of Ramadan in the second part of this reminder. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Adinu nasiha," right? It's just a beneficial reminder and a call to the hearts and the souls. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين على أمور الدنيا والدين وصلى الله وسلم على محمد ختم النبيين وآله وصحبه وأجمعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. My dearly respected brothers, what is this month about? Ramadan. As I asked you, do you feel it coming? And do you want it? My brothers and sisters in the Deen of Islam, this is a month when the tongue will be locked up. This is a month, my brothers and sisters, when the gaze of the eyes will go down. This is a month, my brothers, when the ears will draw closer to what? The sound of the Quran. This is a month where the beat of the heart will only flutter to the rhythm and the tone of the Hafiz that stands before you as he's reciting the Quran. This, my brothers, this is a month where we will be gathered together and all of our backs will be bowed to Allah. Our backs will be bowed. Our necks, my brothers, will be bent. Our foreheads will be on the ground. This is a month, my brothers, when the feet will be restrained from walking to anything that is haram. The arms will be tied up and they won't reach and work anything that is illegal. My dearly respected brothers, this is a month where the soul is cleansed. This is a month not only where the soul is cleansed, but the heart is drawn closer to Allah. Do you want that? This is a month where we will be standing in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every single night and every single day. Standing in the presence of Allah. Everybody will be saying Allahu Akbar as they prostrate. And as they stand up, they will be saying the same thing, Allahu Akbar. As they sit from one position to the next, what will we be saying? Allahu Akbar. We will be acknowledging that the only one that is great is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a month, my brothers and sisters, that is calling you to come closer to Allah. Allah is calling you. And the call has been made to bring you closer to Allah, to guide you, to protect you, to give you what you want and what you ask for, to raise the levels of you, my brothers and sisters. Some of you will be free during this month of Ramadan. And some of you, unfortunately, won't be. Ya'udhu billah, may Allah protect us from that. This is a month, my brothers and sisters, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cage up the shayateen. No distractions. I ask you, are you ready? And do you want this month? Do you desire it? Do you feel that you need it? Do you really want it? We have to go into Ramadan like a boxer in the ring, fighting against our own nafs. This is the time, my brothers and sisters, when the souls will be humbled before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is time to give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his right. To give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what is due to him. To come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. To be more thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be grateful. Is this not what you want? We want from Allah, but what are you willing to give to him? I'm asking you, my brothers, in this month coming up, Run to it. Don't run away from it. Run to it. And when you put your head before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, know that this is the closest that you will be in this life. Don't be like the one who puts his head on the ground and his heart bows along with his body, but his soul is far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be the one that is close to Allah. Cry out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify your soul, to take away the bad deeds that you've acquired. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase you in this life and in the next. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide you more and more and more, and make your children or your progeny to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. This is the time when we go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we rush to Him. And we beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we cry in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an example, my brothers, that we have to live for the rest of our lives. And don't let Ramadan end when Ramadan ends. Keep the tongue chained up. Keep the arms subdued. Keep the hearts bowed to Allah and the heads on the ground and the backs bent, my brothers. And always understand the call is made, and understand the statement that we make, Allahu Akbar, in every movement that we make. Know who Allah is before it is too late. Let us rush to this month, my brothers. Let us be eager to get from Allah what mankind cannot give us. Let us be eager. Let us be eager. My dearly respected brothers and sisters, and I end with this. Ask yourselves just one thing. Do I really want to get closer to Allah? Ask yourselves this. And after you ask yourself that question, answer it with your actions and your submission to Allah. Not with words, but with action this time. And inshallah, hopefully, if we do that, then it will bring us closer to Allah. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. My dearly respected brothers, just before I end, I wanted to mention that the brother, he mentioned this before we started, there will be a family iftar on every Sunday. Family iftar on every Sunday. And also, they have asked that my brothers, that you sign up for the that you sign up for the monthly donations for the mosque. I think this is something that if you sign up for, it's automatic withdrawals or something. Get with the administration on this, but please make your contributions to the masjid, my brothers and sisters. And please, as I mentioned, we are brothers, we are companions. And the foundation of this masjid is on the basis of the work that you put into it. So contribute to this masjid with your actions, not with just words. Inshallah.